So hi, Mr. Hari. I
Hi,
think
Ram.
previously in the previous episode, I think you mentioned about that 37% and the 63% and the gem box. And you briefly touched about flow and potential in terms of why is flow and potential so much more important than performance?
You bet, Ram. That's a great question. One of the things we touched on episode 3 was the constituents of today's workforce, right? It includes Gen Zers and Gen X and, of course, a little bit of the older generation. So I was saying that, the millennials and the Gen Zers want to know what's in it for them continually, right? If they don't, if they lose sight of that, they suddenly start questioning, why am I in this job, right? So they want it continuous. So the good news is the revolution that we are trying to bring about will also greatly help the longest serving workers. So whatever I'm going to tell you now, which will be good for the millennials and the Gen Zs, will also help the older workers. So I don't know whether you heard of Stephen Kotler. Okay, Stephen is the executive director of the Flow Research Collective. And there's a 51-minute video where he talks on how to focus, just focus, to maximize potential. So now ask this question. Why would a flow scientist talk about maximizing potential unless there's a strong link, right? And the strong link there is.
Could you elaborate a bit more?
Sure. So, I've had the honor and privilege of actually teaching the concept of flow to HP leaders since 2014 when I was working at HP. Okay. But from then up until now, a lot of advancements have taken place. At that time, we used to have a fuzzy breakout activity after I teach the concept, hoping that leaders can figure out which aspects of their job would put them in a state of flow and help put their own employees or staff in a state of flow. It was hard on them. And what came out in hindsight was not really actionable enough, if you ask me, right? But research now points to fantastically practical ways to get there. It was not there in 2014. Take a look at this chart. The points are distilled from the life work of the master of the science of flow himself, this Hungarian-American scientist whose name is Professor Csikszentmihalyi. By following these 7 principles and building a behavioral culture to nurture these 7 principles, an organization will, according to Professor Csikszentmihalyi and Stephen Kotler's research, be able to greatly enhance the ability of its employees and leadership to operate at their full potential and thus profit from it. What I love about these 7 principles is its simplicity and intuitiveness.
How difficult or easy is this to implement?
Yeah, it's easy to implement for organizations and leaders who understand this stuff, and have the will to embrace it. It's really worth it. People, they start understanding this stuff, they can do it. But, and I use the word but here, most organizations' leadership have the will but not the skill. You tell them this stuff, they all get it. They say, yeah, it makes sense. But now you go and expect them to go and do it, impossible. Yeah, it is like they don't know where to start, okay? And the skills needed here are complex. I admit that. It's not easy. And that's why they need, help from specialists like us. Because we spend our lifetime doing this, right? And we are multi-talented. We are in HR, we understand data science, we understand strategy, we have advised a lot of organizations, and are ourselves practitioners, right, of these principles. So to simplify it for them and make it easy to implement, they need us. And, our unique holistic approach is built on this framework of peakism. And this is the first time I'm introducing this word to you. And it'll make them rapidly move into what we have a proprietary O to I 3-step process, which is a distributed model of ownership, and that will help them achieve it. So the O to I stands for orient, implement, and iterate. And it's done repetitively on a need basis. And here's how the ownership model is distributed. If you look at the graph, or the graphic, it looks pretty simple, right? There are certain things that the employee has to do and a certain thing the manager has to do, and some that both have to do. That's what's called the distributed model, and it's easy to implement. And we'd be happy for leaders to take this and run. If you have the will and the skill, I'm giving you the stuff. You can use this, make it happen. We'd love for you to come back to us and tell us how it works, right? So here are the 7 principles of flow and the 8 factors of potential and how they connect to each other. The next graphic will show you that, right? Again, it's simple and it's easy to see.
Wow, that's really cool. What might be some challenges in successfully implementing this?
Yeah, I'll give you a hint, Ram. You will need to look for hooks in your company's values. Yeah, that's the key hint I can give you, right? It gets down to having a clear strategy and sufficient corporate values. And I say sufficient because some of times I've seen so many organizations' values and culture and all that. I would say 60 to 80% of organizations who proclaim all these values tend to live up to it. Okay, there are a few occasions when companies get derailed. I think there are some unfortunate instances in corporate world. The Wells Fargo case where although they have all these brilliant values, it was completely demolished when they forced their salespeople to go and sell products to customers who don't need them. Those things happen, but those are corner cases. But as long as they have the values, you can be assured of success. Okay, and these values need to include some building blocks from where the O to I can be launched. Now, whether your values have these building blocks or not is something that if you don't know it, you can ask us. Okay, we can work with you and we can coach and facilitate your business unit leaders and their reporting leaders to build out their business unit specific and department specific strategies, and that everyone is clear about what I call the true north. Okay, so in my 3 decades of working for the best of the best, the true north is so essential and so often missing, it's shocking.
So, Mr. Hari, is there anything more to it?
Yeah. In the rare cases where the company's values are not conducive, leadership may need to revisit their corporate values, starting with the end in mind, and tweak it. It's happened, If you just take the example of HP, in the last 5 years, I have seen them shifting and tweaking their values, especially after the demerger of HP Enterprise and HP Inc. They have tweaked their values quite a bit in the last 3-4 years. So it's actually it's done. So they can tweak these values, and if they're not sure the corporate values will facilitate an O to I, again we can offer them a free short consultation with us. Okay, again, use the number and the contact and the emails below, and we can advise them on the feasibility of launching an O to I over a phone call or an email. Right? That's absolutely possible.
Thank you, Mr. Hari, for enlightening us with the flow and potential, and also the some of the challenges in terms of successfully implementing this. So for further details, you can always look at the link below on how to contact Mr. Hari, either through an email or a phone call. Thank you so much, Mr. Hari.
You're welcome, Ram. Thanks for your time. This has been a great session.
Thank you.